I'm just going to take a couple minutes to tell you about pre-college programs because I want to spend the bulk of our time with our panelists today. So are those raise your hand if you're familiar with Young Entrepreneurs at Haas. One, two people. Young Entrepreneurs at Haas is the business school's outreach and academic preparation program that has been around for 24 years. We're celebrating the 25th anniversary this year. And it was founded by Ray Miles, former Dean Ray Miles, and the goal of the program is to engage students who are would be first generation to go to college, low income, and attend public schools. We have a middle school program and a high school program, and I'll just, if you take a look at the screen, and I also have a handout for you. So the middle school program is we offer it on 5 different middle school campuses, and we teach basically financial literacy and business fundamentals. It also leads into our high school program. Which is an application program for students who would be first generation and low income. And students who are in this program are with us for 4 years. They come primarily from high schools where they have very marginal graduation rates. And when students are with us for 4 years, they graduate from high school and attend college. So your Haas has been doing this for nearly 25 years. It's a great program, and we'd love to tell you more about it if you're interested, but that's not the focus of our presentation today. The other part of the Office of Pre-College Programs, which we'll talk about at the end, is Berkeley Business Academy for Youth. Which we're starting our sixth season this year, and it is 2-week summer business camps for students in middle and high school who are interested and can afford this kind of an opportunity, so it's not targeted at our Yay audience. So this year we have 2 different high school sessions. One is on entrepreneurship and the other is on a case study, looking at the Apple and Samsung case, which is perfect for this audience. So again, I can talk to you about this at the end. It can be a day camp or a residential experience, and we have students from around the world who participate in this. So it's also a way for your student to have an immersive college tour before perhaps doing college tours. So that is the flying carpet overview of the Office of Pre-College Programs. Today, what we're here to talk about is mapping the pathway to college for your children. By show of hands, can I see who has middle schoolers that they're, okay, almost everybody. Who has freshmen? Sophomores? Juniors? And seniors? Yeah. Okay, good. So we have a great panel today. We have Anna Rangel, who is here with us as a part of the Yay staff. She joined us this year for the first time as a full-time college advisor advising our Yay students, and she is part of a program here on campus called Destination College Advising Corps. So very exciting for us to have Anna on our team and to advise our students full-time. So yes?
Before you leave this low-income program?
Yes.
You have to be here to take that, or can you do that online, or?
You have to be here to do that.
Here.
Yeah. It's Bay Area based. So, our second speaker, who I'll introduce in more detail in a minute, is Sara Eisenberg Hauser, here, who is with us from Princeton Review, a new partner of ours. We've had different organizations work with us on test preparation, but this year Princeton Review will be doing test preparation for our Yay students, and we also have a great opportunity discount for all of you if you're interested that also supports Yay. And then our final speaker is Geralyn Concepcion Yparraguirre, right here, who is with Berkeley Admissions. So I know you'll be interested in hearing from all of them. So just to set the tone for the presentation today, I know that day to day, we deal with students whose parents did not attend college, and it can be frightening and a scary experience. But we also know that for those of you who did who have attended college and graduate school, it's a very different ballgame than when you applied to school. And I know that it can be overwhelming and stressful, but we're here today to share with you a lot of good information, but also to share with you the idea that we hope this is a fun journey for you. We hope you start as early as you can with your kids, and that there's a seat for every kid who wants to go to college. We'll talk more about that. So I hope we can all enjoy the ride. So let me start by introducing Ana Rangel. Ana is a recent Cal grad who majored in social welfare, and as I mentioned, she joined us through a partnership with Destination College Advising Corps. Ana is first generation to attend college and was able to participate in programs such as Puente and Upward Bound, if you're familiar with any of those. She'll be in the Destination College Advising Corps program for 2 to 3 years. It's kind of like Peace Corps or AmeriCorps, and all the students in this program will be headed to graduate school. So we are so fortunate to have her. She's got great information, and let me welcome Ana.
All right, good morning. Good morning. All right, so I know it's the first workshop, but let's get our participation juices flowing. So we're here today to talk about specifically what each of your students can do depending on the grade level they're at to prepare for college, right? But before we start talking about how to prepare, let's refresh a little bit on what we're going to be preparing them on, right? All right, so just briefly to refresh our memories, the California State Universities, or the CSUs. Currently, we have 23 campuses across California. The application fee has gone up to $55 per school that your student plans to apply to. The application process is from October 1st to November 30th. Minimum GPA is of a 2.0. However, we do have 4 impacted campuses, which means the higher the GPA, the better it is for your student, right? And those campuses are San Diego State University. Yes?
Or we have to write?
We can email them to everybody.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. So San Diego State University, Long Beach, Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo, and San Jose State are the 4 competitive impacted CSUs that we currently have. And they also require the SAT or the ACT test scores. Moving on to the UCs, we have 10 campuses across California. 9 are open for undergraduate admissions, UC San Francisco being the one that doesn't. $70 per application, and the application period is from November 1st to November 30th. A 3.0 minimum GPA is required to be eligible to apply, and they also require the SAT or the ACT test. The SAT-2 subject test is recommended. It's not a requirement, but depending on what path your student might be going into is whether it's highly recommended or just recommended. And the UCs also require a personal statement, which is they answer 2 questions about themselves, which I'm sure will be talked about a little bit more later on in the presentation. And then we also have private schools, right? We have 76 in California, way more in the nation. But the requirements and the deadlines will vary amongst them. So they come up with their own deadlines and requirements and things like that. So you really have to do your research and know what each school requires. Most of them can be applied to through the common application. But in addition to that application, each school may require different types of supplementary questionnaires. Any questions about that? I know that was super fast, but I want to get into specific grades. All right. So now middle school. I know that's a grand majority of our audience here today. So what can our students do during middle school to prepare for privates, UCs, CSUs, etc.? So start reviewing their strengths and weaknesses. What subjects do they enjoy the most? Which ones are they struggling with or their least favorite? Through that, they could start talking to different friends and family members about their interests. If they're interested in business, connect them with people who are in that field, just so they could start talking about what they like to do. In terms of academics, it's important for them to take pre-algebra in the 7th grade and algebra in the 8th grade. That way, when they go into high school, they go straight into geometry. Now, for whatever reason, if your student doesn't follow that math path, it's okay if they start with algebra in the 9th grade, okay? So now some tips for middle school students and what can they do. So use their time outside of school wisely. Again, get them involved in sports or different things that will explore more of what their interests are. We need to get them in that mindset of it's okay to ask for help. Ask for help when you need it, and to get them comfortable with asking different types of questions. Also get them, used to turning in assignments and talking to teachers and creating that relationship with staff at school. And also something that both parents and students can do in middle school is start learning about the A through G requirements and the doorways when you're in the 8th grade. So what are the A through G requirements? Yes. So the A through G requirements are the classes that the UCs and CSUs require your students to take. This is where they calculate their GPA from. So 2 years of history required, 4 years of English, so every year in high school they should be taking an English class, 3 years of math, 4 years recommended. Again, the recommended is more if your student is striving for those competitive universities, right? So if you want to turn the recommended into a requirement for your student, that's perfectly fine. For laboratory science, it's 2 years required, again, 3 years recommended. For your foreign language, it's 2 years required, 3 years recommended, 1 year of a visual and performing arts, and then a college prep elective class. Now, for the college prep elective class, your student doesn't necessarily have to go out of their way to take a class and fulfill this requirement. If they take an extra year of any of the above subjects, that class will go under the elective. Yes? No, this is for high school. So your student is moving on to high school. These are the classes and the number of years they should be taking it in high school. Yes? For what subject?
For math. English.
For math, yes. So if they start their freshman year, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade, they have 4 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's taking a math class every year in high school.
Will they have their grade by the time they apply for the college? Will they have the 4 years record?
Yes and no. So your student applies to college the fall semester of their senior year. And like I said, for UCs and CSUs, the application deadline is November 30th. By that time, they don't have their first semester grades for senior year, but they do tell the school, these are the classes I'm taking.
Okay.
So the school knows. Yes?
So in certain schools, say for example, if my son's taking algebra trig in 9th, there's no point, there's no more classes left beyond that, except Calc BC, and that's it.
So there's AP Calculus,
Yes,
AP, BC, AP Statistics.
AP and AP Statistics. So there's not many classes to take in general so that's okay, right? So,
yeah, technically they fulfilled
because once you go
a
to
higher level of math,
yeah,
but an alternative to that is for your students to start taking math classes at a community college. And that counts towards their GPA and the requirements for college. Sorry. Good question, though. Any other questions? All right, so how do we know what classes at the school that your student goes to are approved to fulfill these requirements? So that's where doorways comes in. So each school, and this is Alameda High School as an example, has a list of classes that they offer that are approved to fulfill the A through G requirements. Every school has one for every year. And that's what UCs and CSUs use. So for example, this is a history requirement, right? These are all the history classes that are offered at Alameda High School that if your student takes, will count for the requirements. And that's the website up there where you could go and look at your school. So now your student is in high school. As a freshman, what should they be doing? So get familiarized with the A through G requirements that we just talked about and the school graduation requirements. So these are two different set of requirements. Some schools, they don't overlap. So for example, for high school, a PE is a requirement, right? If they don't take PE, they don't graduate high school. But for colleges, they don't care about PE. So making sure that they fulfill the requirements to be able to graduate while also fulfilling the requirements to be able to be eligible for college admissions. So also, every year discuss the classes that they're taking with both parents and counselors. Sit down and come up with a plan of what classes the school offers that they can take and will still be challenging themselves. So in other words, create an individual academic plan, which looks something like this. So here you have the A through G requirements, and then at the bottom, so you don't forget the high school requirements. And then every year of high school. So this is an example of someone in the 9th grade doing this for the first time, right? They're planning out what classes they're taking freshman year and then which ones they can take the rest of their high school career and fulfill the A through G requirements. And it's also important to update this every year, right? So your student graduated 9th grade, okay, 10th grade. Are they still following this path? Or maybe your school is offering a new AP class. Do they want to take that one instead? Any questions? Yes?
Is this just for California, or this is just a
Yes. So the A through G requirements is a California thing for UCs and CSUs. Private schools don't necessarily go by the A through G requirements. That's why it's important to do your research for their requirements. Good question.
Is it similar or is it varies a lot?
No, it's similar, but maybe they only want, maybe they require the 4 years of math instead of 3.
Okay.
So it's just maybe by a year difference, or they want 2 years of a visual performing arts instead of 1. So it's just the same subjects, just different years. Yes?
So again, going back to the math, like for example, geometry is a key requirement for UCs. And so if they don't have geometry on that, but they have any other beyond, is that you have to go back and take it again?
So I think starting in 2016, it's a requirement for every student to take geometry, and you can't skip it. So your student is going to have to enroll in that class.
Afterwards?
Yeah.
But if they take it in middle school, it will count.
Yeah, if they take it in middle school, it's fine. But that's not a usual thing. All right, so some tips for freshmen. So, learn strong study skills. It's not going to get easier from then on, and then in college, a lot more reading. So start getting them in that mindset of, studying and taking their grades seriously. Also getting involved with sports or clubs or extracurricular activities, right? Either in school or out of school. Any questions for freshmen? Yes.
The prior screen a long time ago, you don't have to go back.
Okay.
It said that the summer before 9th grade, the grades don't count. So if you take a high school summer class, the grades don't go on your GPA.
So the way that UCs and CSUs calculate the A through G GPA is any class taken the summer after their 9th grade to the summer before their senior year. So here I said take your grades seriously because some students may know this and some may not, but they don't use the 9th grade grades into factoring your GPA for college admissions. Now, if they know that it doesn't count, they might slack off and then, lose those study skills. So it's important to still take that serious.
The grades are from summer after freshman year?
Mm-hmm. So your student, this is its last semester as a 9th grader. This summer, if he or she enrolls in a summer class, it will start counting then.
But this is only for UCs, right? Not
UCs and CSUs, Cal States.
So a private school in California would count freshman, sophomore, and junior grades?
It
Or it just all
varies,
varies?
but
Okay.
yeah, they do. They might look at it more heavily than a UC and CSU.
So I gotta keep asking. So
No,
then
that's
if you
fine.
apply in the November of your senior year, they're really only looking at your sophomore and your junior grades, that's it.
Exactly.
That's weird.
I mean, they will look at your freshman grades to make sure you didn't fail a class. So if you get a D or an F in an A through G class, you have to retake it. It's not going to count. So they will look at your freshman year grades to make sure you didn't fail a class. Yes?
Don't you submit your fall senior year grades at the end of the year anyway, though, I thought?
So the fall senior year grades go to private schools. Private schools do ask for them. But UCs and CSUs want your full senior year grades once they accept you, just to make sure, again, you didn't fail a class.
Oh, but they don't take it into account after.
Before they give you admissions, no. All right, so moving on for sophomores. So sophomore year, they could take the PSAT, which is the pre-SAT. It's usually offered in October in their schools. And this could be a good way to practice for the SAT, right? The format is very similar, and they could kind of get a feel for the SAT before taking it. Sophomore year, they could start researching colleges and their requirements. So if they're really interested in private schools, they could start looking into them and seeing what classes they ask for, or any other writing requirements that they might need. Start talking to your students about visiting different colleges, right? It's one thing to talk about and say, yeah, I want to go here, but being on that campus and talking to actual students is way different, right? Maybe they always thought they wanted to go to San Jose State, but once they go there, they're like, no, I don't want to. So start talking about doing these college visits. Schools often host career and college nights, so they invite a whole bunch of colleges to the auditorium, and then you could go and talk to representatives and talk more specifically about what is it that their school is looking for. And also for picking classes for junior year, start taking into consideration AP classes and advanced classes, right? So the benefit of AP and honors classes is in your GPA you get an extra point, which helps make your GPA more competitive. Any questions about that? Yes?
Is there a resource to find the college night of any particular campus, or is
So
you
it
have
would
to go to each website of each school? Or?
Yeah, so it would be talking to the school's counselor or a career center. Every school hosts it differently.
So there's no college night season, if you will? There's
Well,
no,
it's usually in the fall,
in the fall.
before applications are out. Yes?
So the schools normally take the unweighted grades, then they add on their own the AP and honors.
The fully weighted GPA. So when you apply, you self-report all your classes, right? And then you calculate your GPA, and you submit your fully weighted GPA with the honors and AP classes.
I know my son's school, for example, they submit unweighted, and I was just trying to figure out, they don't do the fully weighted. They report everything, but it's unweighted, and then I thought, so the colleges don't do the weighting on their own?
So admissions is, seeking students to come in. So they're not going to do something to disqualify your student, and taking an AP class required more time and effort, and so they are going to factor in that extra point in the grade. So if your school didn't do it, then the universities will definitely look at it. Yes?
Question, a friend of mine recommended to my son as a sophomore, after the PSAT, you should take the SAT as a sophomore, because then no matter how many times you take it, you just admit the highest score, right?
That is correct. So when your student should take the...
One of you is saying no.
I'll get into that.
Okay, yeah, so we have a test prep person here, but my recommendation is to start taking the SAT junior year, at the end of your junior year, after you have test prep, or you're more prepared academically because you've gone through a higher level of math and English and reading and writing. But yeah, we will talk about it.
They're different schools of thought.
Okay.
So now, tips for sophomores. Listen to the announcements that your schools make, right? That's how you'll find out about career nights and when they will be bringing in school representatives and things like that. Take challenging classes, again, your AP classes, honors classes. Not all schools offer the same amount of AP classes, so, or if your student already went through the highest level, enroll in a community college class, right, during the summer or in the evenings. And start researching volunteer opportunities, right? Schools don't just want to know about your grades and that you're able to study something and perform well on a test, but they also want to know what type of skills you have to offer. So you demonstrate that through different volunteer work or sports. And start creating a brag sheet every semester, which I do have an example of one in the front, so before you leave if you want to take one. It's pretty much a place where your student can write all the things that they have been involved in, right? So when it comes time to applying for scholarships or schools, they have everything they have done in one spot. All right, now juniors, it's really important to start going to these career nights again. It's okay if you go as a sophomore. Things change every year, so keeping updated is very important. You can start researching scholarship opportunities, right? You might not qualify for all of them, but at least you know what to expect for the following year. And really start your college research. Really, the following year, that's when you're turning in applications, so really focus on what schools do I really want to go to, offer what I want to study, etc. And then that's when I say start taking the SAT or ACT test. So in the spring, you register for the SAT or ACT. Start taking those AP tests in May if you took AP classes. And continue building relationships with teachers, employers, or whoever is hosting your volunteer work so that you could have someone write or put in a good word for you when you start applying for scholarships, or some private schools require letters of recommendations. And really finish compiling your college list by the end of your junior year and start brainstorming for those college essays. So the UC prompts, they're out, they give an advance notice if they're going to change the following year. So the prompts for this past year, you could start having your student think about it and start brainstorming for what they would possibly write. So now seniors, in the fall, what should they be doing? Finish taking the SAT or ACT test. For UCs and CSUs, they have until the December test date. That's the last test date they could take in order for it to count. And start making college choices, right? In the fall is when you apply. So really know these are the 10 or whatever schools that I'm applying to. And create a list of the different deadlines. So there might be, again, this is more for private schools. There's a deadline for like early admissions. Or if they want like follow-up paperwork, they have different deadlines. So if you have like some sort of spreadsheet, that helps a lot. Again, November 30th is the UC-CSU deadline, and also in the fall, early admissions for private schools. And make sure your student is passing their class with a C or higher. Like someone asked before, colleges won't see these grades until after, well, UCs and CSUs won't see these grades until after they've been admitted, but if they fall anything below a C, their admissions is jeopardized. So that's something to keep in mind. So now in the springtime, that is more of the financial aid component, right? So FAFSA is what your students would be filling out. So start gathering your tax information, your students' tax information if they worked, and also get ready to fill out the CSS profile, which is the financial aid component for private schools, in addition to the FAFSA, all right? The FAFSA is free, the CSS profile is not. There's a fee for it, for every school as well. Your students should continue to keep applying to scholarships. The FAFSA is due March 2nd every year, and more towards the end of spring, well, around this time, your students will be getting financial aid packages from each school they apply to. So start reviewing those and trying to make your decision of where your student is heading off to. May 1st is the last day for your student to commit to a school, right, senior year, and follow directions for housing deposits and orientation and different things like that. And also make sure your student graduates high school. Again, PE is a high school requirement, not a college requirement. Maybe for some reason they kept putting PE off, and senior year they haven't taken it, they don't graduate high school, their admissions is at jeopardy, right? So sounds very simple, but it's happened to students before. So now very briefly, these are Haas admissions. So if your student is interested in business and ends up at UC Berkeley and interested in Haas, they would be applying towards their second year, a sophomore here in Berkeley. The criteria is prerequisites. These are the classes they should have taken before applying. The foreign language criteria that could be fulfilled by taking a foreign language here, or if they took a foreign language in high school and passed the AP test, that could be used to fulfill this requirement. And Haas also looks heavily on extracurricular activities while their time in Berkeley, right? And it doesn't have to be business oriented. As long as they're passionate about it, they're good to go. Yes?
Quick question, for Haas admission, does Haas tend to take students transferring in from other colleges in sophomore year? Or okay.
They do. So if your student goes to a community college the first 2 years, by the second year when they apply to Berkeley, they also apply to Haas at the same time.
Or from any other college they want to transfer over?
Good question.
So the sophomore year means in community college, not in
In
high
community
school.
college or here in Berkeley. Not from another UC or CSU.
Oh, okay.
The difference for transfer students is that if you apply to Haas as a transfer student and you don't get in to Haas, you don't get into Berkeley. So it's harder to transfer in some respects.
Yes.
Just to clarify Amir's question on the transferring, I was also told transferring from a state, four-year state to the UC is much more difficult than transferring from a
Yes, it's not a traditional path. So the reason why you transfer from a community college to a four-year institution is because there's an agreement between those schools that we will prepare the students, give them their general education, and send them to you ready for them to finish their major, right? And there isn't that agreement between UCs or CSUs or privates, so it's very uncommon and up to each school's discretion.
I'll just add one number. I work at Haas as well. 90 of 350 students as juniors at Haas are community college transfers. That's part of that education master plan.
Yes.
What was that?
What was the number?
90 of 350. Wow. Yeah, it's a large number and it's set in that plan.
Is there a quota for this number? Transfer, maximum number
Going
of
into
transfers?
sophomore
I
year?
think it's 90 of 350 per prior arrangement, and that's going into the junior year, first year of the Haas undergraduate program.
So the remaining 260 comes from UC Berkeley? Where do they?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know, there may be a couple of other pathways, but those are the two big ones.
Yeah. Question?
I came in a bit late, but I'm curious, did you talk at all, or could you speak a bit to this newer industry that's arisen of coaching kids to get them into the colleges, and how predominant that is in the UC system, or if it's just an Ivy League phenomenon, and how important you think it is?
In terms of like
paying someone tens of thousands of dollars to get your kid into college. Basically.
Well, nothing is a guarantee, right? Your student still has to apply and know how to sell him or herself. I
think Sara can talk to that in her presentation, which will be next. So.
Thank you. Yeah.
Can I ask Mary another one? Do you know, is that ratio, that 90 to 350 to Haas, is that about the same ratio into other programs like chemistry or?
Oh, I have no idea. Sorry. Okay. I can track it down for you, but I don't know.
Okay. Sorry.
No problem.
So just one comment on transfers. So students who are interested in getting involved with Haas as a community college student can be a YA mentor. So it's an opportunity it's the only opportunity to participate in a campus program because they're not campus students, but they fully become part of YA and they're teaching the YA curriculum to our students. And so, and of course it looks good on their application. So I can talk more about that, and Anna and I will all be here at the end, but I'd like to maybe take one more question for Anna and then we'll move on to Sara.
And it's a lot of information, but
thank you.
So So I'm delighted to introduce Sara Eisenberg, who I met just recently. She is Executive Director of the Princeton Review for Northern California. And in her role, this is the intersection of both her passions, education and business. And she has always had the goal of caring for students in ways that help them reach their potential. And I'm so excited. I mentioned at the beginning, but some of you didn't hear, that we're entering into a partnership with Princeton Review where they'll be working with Yale students at a great discount. And we also have a great opportunity for Haas alumni to talk about in a bit. Sara grew up in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and she has been here in the Bay Area for 18 years. She and her husband and 3 kids, so I know she's kind of got a lot on her mind. College prep. Please welcome Sara.
Thank you. And I'm also a Cal alum. I came from Chapel Hill to Berkeley. I was looking for a little bit more culture, a little bit more diversity, and I definitely got that coming to Berkeley and loved it so much that I've stayed ever since. So I'm sure all of you guys woke up this morning and said, great, I want to learn about test prep, right? Show of hands. I'll be the first to admit, I hate these tests. I don't like the SAT. I don't like the ACT. The only reason I got into Cal is, ironically, I took a Princeton Review course in Chapel Hill in the early 90s, and they coached me to get there. But I also want to tell you, please do not spend tens of thousands of dollars on coaching your child to get into an elite school. I know services like that exist. You know, I think that's a whole nother discussion. It's certainly not necessary, and my belief and the belief of the Princeton Review is very important to find the best fit college. So you need to figure out who you are as a person and then match that with the college. But I am here to spend a few minutes to talk to you about the importance of test prep. While I don't like these tests, they're very, very important, right? Okay, so let's talk about the facts, the myths, and hopefully I can kind of calm some of the anxiety. All right, SAT, ACT, subject test, AP test, so much to know. And you did a great job of outlining, you know, just some of the things that you need to do to help your child get into college. And I'm here to talk about the test prep angle. All right, the basics. Who here has heard of the ACT? Okay, good. I had never heard of the ACT in Chapel Hill. God, I wish I had of. It would have been a much better test for me. I took the SAT because that's all I'd heard of. Differences between the two tests, real quick. The scoring, SAT's out of 2,400 now. When I was growing up, it was 1,600. It's going to go back to that in 2 years. And the ACT's out of 36. National average for each test, SAT's 1,500. ACT is 21. Essay. You got to take them both. It says it's optional on the ACT. If you're applying to a competitive college, you need to do the ACT essay. I think this is the biggest difference for myself. This guessing penalty. SAT is much more strategy. You actually lose points if you guess incorrectly. So much of what we coach you on is, should you even be answering certain questions? ACT, no guessing penalty. I know someone asked about scoring, and both of them have score choice, meaning you can check off which schools you want your scores to go to. However, there are certain schools that will ask for all the scores. There are certain schools that super score, meaning they take the highest of, you know, each section. Every college is different, so do your research. That being said, my general advice is practice as much as you want on your own. Taking real tests, try and limit that. Don't go out and take 6 real tests. You know, it's not worth the time or money, because you can take practice tests all day long, free at your school or through Princeton Review, Kaplan, and the test prep companies. Bottom line though, today you can take either the SAT or the ACT. It does not matter. All schools in the US accept both. Some schools, like local Cal Poly, I could not believe this. On their website, they say they prefer the ACT. I was shocked when I read that. I did my research and looked. That being said, the majority of students who apply to Cal Poly still take the SAT. So either one is fine. Some differences. ACT, if you grew up in the Midwest or the South, traditionally, historically, people have taken the ACT. There are actually many states in the Midwest that require it for high school graduation. There's no penalty for wrong answers. It rewards memorization and accumulating skills. And the ACT does include a higher level of content in math. It includes trig, while the SAT is more common on the two coasts. You do lose points currently for wrong answers. It rewards reasoning and logic. The content stops at Algebra 2, and it's very coachable in terms of strategy. Both tests are very coachable, but SAT much more around the strategy. Okay, who here has heard about David Coleman and College Board? SAT's changing. All right. I mean, it was like the biggest news for us geeks in test prep last month, so we were all over it. And for us, it was pretty controversial because David Coleman went and gave a speech. My test is flawed. We're going to change it in 2016. Why are we changing it? We're changing it because we want to provide equal access. We want all students to be able to prepare for the test. So we're going to partner with Sal Khan, who used to work for the Princeton Review, by the way, and Khan Academy, and we're going to provide free test prep. Great. We say that's great. But you're also saying that test prep matters and you need to study. And that's the biggest point I'm trying to make in this presentation is these tests are coachable. You need to invest, your child needs to invest in the time to study for them. And we believe the real reason College Board is changing their test is because they are a smart business and they've lost market share. Believe it or not, more students took the ACT for the past 2 years. So they want to regain market share. The key differences as to, and first of all, if your child is a sophomore or higher, you can tune out. This only affects students who are freshmen or younger. The new SAT is kind of going back to the old SAT and more like the ACT. They're going to go back to 1,600 points. The biggest change is they're moving to, just like the ACT, no scoring penalty. Test is going to be about the same length. They're going to say the essay is optional. We're predicting, once again, you're going to need to do the essay. And there's just going to be 2 sections as opposed to 3 on the new SAT. How should students prep? And this is where my advice might differ a little bit from Anna, but what Anna says is actually correct and what we find most counselors at schools are still saying. They say that you should prep in your junior year because that's when you have the most content, the most math under your belt. My opinion differs a little bit, but I want to preface this with it depends on your child. For example, if your child is still taking Algebra 2 trig in their junior year, absolutely, you want to wait until they've had more math under their belt. What you will find, though, today's age, in most of your kids probably, they've already taken Algebra 2 trig by their sophomore year, and they've taken the math they need by the end of their sophomore year. And I do agree that it is important to have more content in your studies under your belt, but what are most juniors doing? What does their course load look like? APs. Hopefully they've got more in their life going on, extracurriculars, soccer, tennis, glee club, whatever. They're very, very busy, okay? The reason I, in general, recommend test prep during your summer before your junior year is because you need to spend the time practicing. And you don't want that to interfere with your AP classes, your hard math, your extracurriculars. So it's a great time to spend that dedicated time doing the test prep. Take it as soon as you get back in your junior year, ACTs in September, SATs in October, and you have it done. That's ideal. That is a generalization, though. Some students, it does behoove them to take it their spring of junior year. Every case is different. Does that make sense to you guys? Okay. Any questions so far?
Yes.
Maybe you're getting to it, but my question, you were shaking your head no. The whole thing with taking it twice, does it matter or does it not matter?
No, you can take it as many times as you would like. In general, my advice is I don't think most kids should take it more than 2 or 3 times. I took it once.
Yeah.
Ideally, you've done all the prep, you've taken all the practice tests, so that when you walk in to take the official test, you're ready.
Yeah.
Get it out of the way, get it done. I'll tell you, you can learn most of the SAT information, walk out of the test, forget it all, you're okay. These tests do not test how well you're going to do in college. They do not test your intelligence. They don't test your knowledge. They test how well you're going to do on the ACT or SAT. Okay? That's my advice, though. I mean, you will hear different advice.
Okay.
Yes?
What's the best type of prep for the SAT versus the ACT? You know, there's everything from just getting a book and doing a practice test out of a book to programs that charge many thousands of dollars, you know, where they talk about strategies for 2 hours a day during the summer.
I love that question. It depends on the student. There are some people, like my husband, who drives me crazy. He picks up the book, he reads it, gets a near perfect score. Okay, for those people, invest in a $12 book and you're good, right? But you also have to look at where your child wants to go to school. They want to go to Berkeley. What's the average? 2050 now for SAT? Okay, if your kid's scoring around 1,500, you might want to look into more than a book. And there are programs, including us, where we charge anywhere from $300 to $10,000 for test prep. In general, I think most students can make the point gain that they need by just taking a prep class. You know, in general, they're 18 to 30 hours. You do your homework, you increase by, you know, the average is around 282.5 points. That's generally the best option. Some of us need private tutorial for various reasons, like scheduling or learning differences, or let's say you scored really high in math but really low in English. The messaging I'm trying to get across in this presentation is you want to spend the time. You don't have to spend the money, okay? You can get books and learn on your own. Most of us benefit from additional coaching, and that's obviously what my company does. This is you. You want to stand out in a crowd. You have unique talents. You're a difference maker. You are not a number. I swear to this day, 1266, I think 3031 is my ID number at Cal. It's like, that's what you live by, your ID number. You're trying to get into college, you're trying to stand out, yet where are you? Okay? So how do you draw attention to yourself? And I think these are things that Anna did a great job of highlighting, and Geralyn's going to do more, talking more about, is, you know, how do you get someone to look at you? A college application, okay? Couple things we recommend is don't try and do everything. Have a couple of passions and do a really good job with those passions, okay? Show interest in the university. Attend info sessions, okay? Write to the admissions counselor. Ask questions. Have an upward trend in your grades, right? As we've been told for the UCs, 9th grade doesn't matter. Don't tell your kids that. You want them working hard. They are, 10th and 11th grade are going to count. And then, of course, you want high test scores, okay? This is a point that resonates with me a lot. Your GPA. Who can guess the average amount of time you spend on earning your GPA in high school? Okay. First of all, we say, in general, it varies a lot by college. I was just talking to Geralyn, and UC Berkeley is trying to take a holistic view. But in general, when colleges are looking at a transcript, your GPA can account for somewhere around 40% of your application, okay? How much time is your high school student putting into that GPA? About 6,000 hours. It's a lot of time. Okay, you think about each school year, each school day, and then how much time you're studying, right? On average, your test score counts for somewhere around 20%, give or take. How much time do you think the average student puts into studying for their SAT or ACT?
40 hours.
That's a good answer. I wish that were true. The average student is actually putting in 15 hours, okay? If you're gonna be a number, we want your child to be a big number. So for the SAT, that's gonna be 2,400, right? And for the ACT, that's gonna be a 36. So invest the time, okay? You don't have to invest the money. There are options. Any questions?
If you take those tests multiple times, will that be penalized by the reading hours?
If you take the test multiple times,
You keep repeating, will that be a negative?
no, no, it's not.
No?
It's just the one thing that I would think about is some schools demand all of the scores,
Right.
and then if they see someone's taken the test 6 times and there's wild, differences and discrepancies, it might not look good.
That's the negative, right?
Kinda, yeah. So at all of your high schools, where I was speaking to, I don't know where he is, but your child's at admissions in Fremont. I promise you, there are at least 2 or 3 free practice tests a year. Oh, one other point, PSAT. When I was growing up, it counted in sophomore year. If you want to be a national merit contender, you're in the top like 1%. It only qualifies for national merit your junior year. It does not count your sophomore year. Little tidbit.
Do most schools and perhaps all super score the SAT tests, or?
Depends on the school. Cal doesn't super score, do they?
We take the best sitting.
Best sitting.
Oh.
Yeah, I think that in general is the majority of schools take the best sitting. Super scored mean like you took 2 SATs, you took the best English, the best math. Yeah.
So CSU's, Cal States do that. UC's do all UC's do the highest sitting score.
Oh, that's good.
But-
CSU's do the super
but
score?
Cal States do.
Do most of the colleges ask for all the test scores? Or you can choose to submit which one you,
I think most schools you choose.
most of you choose which one to report to.
Right.
One of the slides you mentioned, like stand out, apart from these scores and GPA, like any advice or any general guidelines?
What you can do to stand out to get into a school?
Yeah,
Be a superstar athlete.
okay. Well, that's tough, right? That's like 0.01%.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, I think for the
And
top
what are the kind of things that colleges look for, like?
leadership,
Okay.
they like to see a passion, giving back to the community. But I think what the reality is, if you want to go to a top 25 school, you need to have the foundation of strong academics and good test scores, right? And then they're going to look at, as a student. The other thing that a lot of schools make a big point of looking at is your background. What have you overcome? What if you come from a low income? What if you're first generation? They're going to take that into account a lot because you've had to work that much harder to get to the same place. Any other questions?
Do they look at all of your kids working? Do they know that? Like, you put that on your essay or whatever, do they take that into account?
What, your kids?
Works while he's in high school?
Oh yeah,
Plus
absolutely.
school.
Absolutely. You list those on your application, and then when you do write your essay, if that's had a big impact on your kid's life, absolutely incorporate it. Let's say you have a 3.5 GPA, but during that time you had to hold down a job to, support the family. That speaks volumes of what you can actually handle in college. All right, well, thank you very much. Let me know if you have any questions. And I brought all these bags. I had my staff make them, and there is actually a cool little towel in here. And, okay, other than the cool towel, there's this great little booklet that actually describes the SATs and all your different test prep options. So you can look into whether online, a course, private tutoring makes the most sense for your child. But guys can all contact me. One of my favorite things is talking to families about what makes sense for their child educationally.
And you want to talk about the discount again?
Oh, yeah. Of course. Thank you.
Because it supports Yay.
Yeah. So we're partnering with Haas, and it's 15% to all of you guys as alum. But 5% of the revenue is actually going to go back to Yay and support their program. I'm personally a donor. Our company's working with Yay. It's a great, great program to help low-income, first-generation kids get exposed to higher education.
Thank you, Sarah. It's great. Yes. So there's a sheet going around. If you haven't signed it, please put your email address and full name, and we'll send you all the slides. So our final speaker is Geralyn Concepcion Yparraguirre, and she is a graduate of UC Irvine, a place that Anna and I just visited with Yay students on our college tour. She has her master's degree in higher education and post-secondary education from Teachers College, Columbia University, and she is a undergrad admissions specialist here at UC Berkeley. She's the liaison for the Haas School of Business, and she's also one of the diversity coordinators on staff. So welcome, Geralyn.
Is it on? Yeah. Okay. First of all, I wanted to thank Jennifer for inviting me to participate in Alumni Weekend. I did it last year. I really enjoyed doing it because I was able to meet some really good people after the presentation and during the presentation. So I'm happy to be here today. I'm here to talk to you about how we review applications at UC Berkeley. And a lot of it is going to be a little bit of a repeat of what Anna and Sara have presented to you all in their presentations. But being that this is a workshop about college prep and how to best prepare your students, I feel that it's good that you hear the same sorts of information again, just so the points get drilled in. So with that, I'm going to begin. And before I go into these slides, I'm going to preface it by saying that it addresses a question that always comes up whenever I speak to people in large groups or smaller groups. And so I just want to sort of address the elephant in the room prior to. But I also want to say that I'm going to go over our admission rates over the past couple of years. It may look to be a little bit discouraging. I don't do this to discourage you all from encouraging your children to apply. It's just to paint a pretty realistic picture of what we're working with or what we're looking at in terms of the pool, and hopefully to help you all be drawn to us highlighting the things that you need to do to prepare and make your children better ready for the application process. So this first slide goes over our freshman admissions over the past couple of years. And as you could see, as the amount of applications go up, the admission rate goes down. Does anyone in the audience know how many students applied to UC Berkeley for freshman admissions this year? 90,000 is correct for our entire pool as a whole. That's including transfer. Well, we had around 73,000 applications this year with an admission rate of 17.4%. And this is what our transfer admissions looks like as well, because we also want to address transfer admissions as a great route for students for entry into the university or higher education for many reasons. Maybe they don't feel ready getting out of high school to start in college yet. Maybe they would like to expand their options and they feel that going to community college afterward would best help them meet their goals both socially and academically in order to have a wider range of colleges to choose from. But as you can see from these admission rates, it's a little bit higher than freshman admissions because the pools are smaller than freshman admissions. So with the size of the pool increasing yearly, when we read applications, we find ourselves asking this question: how do we distinguish between applicants with similar records? And when I say records, I mean their GPA and their standardized test scores. So as you can see by the GPA and by these test scores, all of these students are doing really well. And as we're looking at applicants, we want to see what distinguishes each individual applicant from just merely their numbers. Repeating what both speakers have said, a student is more than just their numbers. So how do we do that? Through our selection process, which is based on holistic review. And in our holistic review, we consider all achievements, both academic and non-academic, including but not limited to GPA, test scores, honors, geographic location, accomplishment within life experiences, special programs, and et cetera. And I'll go into some of these factors in a little bit more detail. What I want you all to remember when it comes to our holistic review is this idea of context. And what do I mean by context? I'm talking about the environments from which each individual applicant is coming from. So no one application is going to look alike to another because each student is coming to us with their different experiences based on their families, based on their neighborhoods, based on the schools from which they're coming from. So when we're talking about this idea of context and the holistic review that looks at everything in the application, what we're measuring is how a student was able to take advantage of the opportunities that were presented to them in their environments and in their contexts and go above and beyond what was expected of them. So this can work for a student that happened to be blessed with a huge number of opportunities in their context. So based on that, what were they able to do with that huge number of opportunities? And how were they able to go above and beyond what was expected of them? Conversely, there may be students that may be coming from situations or experiences where they may not have had a lot of opportunities. But in light of that, how are they able to go above and beyond what was expected of them? First factor that I'm going to talk about in our application review is academics. We already talked about GPA and test scores. I did say that in our review, we try to work really hard to see what distinguishes students from just their mere numbers. But it does help for a student to have a strong GPA and strong test scores to set the foundation. But after that foundation, they have to do a little bit more and tell us a little bit more about themselves. We're looking at a student's coursework. So from 9th through 12th grade and through the A through G, each school that a student's applying from has a number of AP, honors level, IB level, or as Anna mentioned earlier, maybe a student has had the opportunity to challenge themselves with a college level course. So what we're doing is we're taking a look at how students are doing in their coursework, and more specifically, how they're challenging themselves with the amount of coursework that's offered at their particular school, because we are able to see that when we review the application. We're also looking at grade trends. As mentioned earlier, the 9th grade year is not factored into the UC GPA because we know that's a year of transition. The 12th grade year is not factored into the GPA either because we do not see their grades. But for the 12th grade year, we can still see something. And what would that be? What do you all think that is when we're looking at the application? What can we see during a student's 12th grade year? The kind of classes that they're taking. So while we can't see their GPA, their senior year is still important because we want to see that a student is maintaining the same level of challenge that they may have taken on during their junior year. And with the 9th grade year, although we don't factor in the GPA, we're going to be using that as sort of like a foundation to measure your grade trends. If it was an upward grade trend or a consistent grade trend, then that's great. If it's an inconsistent or a spotty grade trend, then if I'm reading the application, I may review the information and have a little bit of questions about what went on. So if your students or your children find themselves in that situation, you want to make sure that they address what went on. Sometimes students think that if they are to point towards areas in the application that may warrant a question, they think that if they explain, it's them making excuses. That's not the case. As long as the student is able to show awareness of the situation and point to evidence in the application that shows that they've since been excelling, like an upward grade trend or an increase in the amount of challenging courses that they're taking, then it's always a good thing. We're also going to be looking at involvement, and these are some of the things that we look at specifically in the application. We take a look at awards and honors, and I just like to name a couple of examples based on applications I've read in the past. Maybe your son or daughter was a junior board member on a board full of adults who are working full time. Maybe they were part of the homecoming court at their high school. Organizations, as mentioned earlier, we like to see students that exhibit passion. So we definitely value students that are involved in the same sorts of activities over an extended period of time and have had sort of put in the time to move up in the ranks and take lead roles in projects or to take on roles of leadership. And there's plenty of space for you to be able to talk about that, for your students to be able to talk about that in the application. When they're describing the activity, they can talk about the extent to which they're involved in the activity and actually pick out and name any projects or positions they've held. Because if a student doesn't tell us about that, there's no way for us to guess that they're involved in those things based just merely because they've been involved in an activity for 2 to 3 years. We're also looking at special programs participation. Maybe your son or daughter participated in AVID or an after-school program. This could also go towards summer programs such as Cosmos, a writing camp, a sports camp. Any sort of achievement that's going on outside of the traditional school hours, after school or during summer, is definitely something we take a look at as well. We're also looking at employment, and that question was asked earlier, and we're also looking at internships. And I've already mentioned this, going over the types of involvement that we look at, but within the realm of involvement, we're looking at leadership. And there are traditional forms of leadership. So can anyone name examples of traditional forms of leadership? President of your club, that's a very popular one. Anyone else? Captain of a team, that's also a popular one. So those are some examples of traditional leadership. Maybe your son or daughter founded a club or organization at their school, took on a traditional role of president or captain. Maybe they're an editor of a publication on their high school's campus. But there's also forms of non-traditional leadership. And these are forms of leadership that a lot of students tend to take for granted because it's embedded in their value system and it's expected of them. For example, maybe a student is taking the lead role within their family and setting a great example for their younger brothers and sisters, helping them out with their homework, picking them up from school. Maybe there's an older family member that they're taking care of. Another example of non-traditional leadership would be maybe a student is involved in their spiritual community, leading Sunday school, involved in a temple, etc. I'm going to talk about a personal example from when I applied to UC many, many years ago. But my junior and senior year, I was the queen of my father's Filipino organization here in the Bay Area. And that involved me getting involved in fundraising. I had to do community service activities here in the Bay Area. I had to travel to the Philippines and represent the organization at a festival. And I didn't list it in my application. Why didn't I list it in my application? It was because it was something my family expected for me to do. And I didn't view it as leadership. But years later, in working for UC and in reviewing applications, in retrospect, I realized that was actually a leadership position. So as Anna mentioned earlier, it's going to be very important for your sons and your daughters to take stock in everything that they've been involved in and to not take anything for granted as something that we would view as them going above and beyond what was expected of them. Now I'm going to talk to you about the personal statement. Why is it so important? Because it's very, very, very important. We view this, well, I want you to view this as your interview to UC. We don't do an interview process, so consider this your interview. And this is your one moment as an applicant to tell us everything about yourself, what makes you tick, what makes you think, your passion, your dreams, your motivations, everything you've accomplished up until this point that will make you ready to be a great student to contribute to UC Berkeley's environment or any other UC. And here's the kicker. You can go on and on and on about yourself, as most people do during interviews. But unlike the traditional interview, we can't interrupt you. So this can be a good thing if you give us useful or pertinent information. It can be a not so good thing or more of a neutral thing if you don't give us pertinent or useful information. A lot of people like to ask these questions to start. What do I write about and where should I start? So I'm going to ask you all a question. If you are writing the personal statement, or if I'm writing the personal statement, what is the subject? What would the subject be? What you're passionate about, and I also heard yourselves, which relates to me or yourself. So you want to make sure that the subject is you, or if your son or daughter or student is writing the personal statement, they want to make sure that the subject is themselves or me. In that, when you're writing about these things, when you're writing about what you're passionate about, the student, or if it was me, I want to make sure that what I'm writing about demonstrates that my voice, my personality, and my dreams is actually coming through the activities and the events that I describe, and not those things speaking on behalf of me. And I'm going to use the prompts to further illustrate my point. The first prompt asks students to describe the world in which they come from and how it shaped their dreams and aspirations. Students will take this prompt and talk about many things: their schools, their neighborhoods, their families. But common mistake with this prompt is sometimes a student will talk about grandma and spend their entire personal statement talking about how grandma was an admirable woman and she was a doctor and she did all of these things to help the community. And at the very end say, and that's why I want to be a doctor, because my grandma did these things. That's great. If grandma applied to UC, she'd probably get in, but that's not gonna get you into a UC. You want to make sure that you keep your description of these things to a minimum. So your grandma was a doctor, very altruistic, gave to her community. That could be a couple of sentences. Based on that example that she set, how are you able to take that example? What actual tangible things did you do to emulate her example? And why do you continue to do those things? Tell us why you're passionate about those things beyond it just being something your grandma did. The same could be said about your school environment. If you're going to tell us about how you loved going to St. Ignatius High School, I went to St. Ignatius High School, because it instilled in you Jesuit principles and values and taught you to be a person for others. Don't just describe the value system of your school. Talk about the actual tangible things that you did to emulate those examples, and also give us a deeper insight as to why. I'm running out of time here, so I'm just going to quickly go over the transfer prompts. And what I was saying earlier could definitely apply to the transfer prompts as well. You really want to make sure that you're speaking through these prompts and not the things that you describe speaking on behalf of you. And the session ends at 12:30. This is my time for questions, but if you all want to stick around and ask me questions after, if your question doesn't get answered by the time the session ends, that could work too.
Same trend at almost every college. There hasn't been a baby boom. Is this foreign students applying? What's going on that's causing such a spike?
Sara and I were talking about this prior to the presentation, and I mean, it's just a matter of students applying in huge numbers to the same universities. There's a lot of options out there. There are colleges and universities that would be a perfect fit depending on the applicant, but it's just that the competitive universities happen to be the one that applicants flock to in huge numbers, which would loan to how competitive it's getting.
There is a population increase. It's not a boom, but there are record numbers of students applying for colleges. So.
And same, Ben, the numbers you had, the percentages that got in, like 20, whatever it was. What's the percent of California residents that get into Cal?
Yeah, so the majority of our pool is coming from California. and I don't have those exact numbers, but I do know that
The LA Times said it was down near 6%, is that accurate?
6% for California residents? That's
6%
absolutely.
of freshman applicants are from California.
No, that's absolutely incorrect. The majority of our applications are coming from California.
No applications, but what about people that get in?
Yeah, no, it's not 6%. It's definitely not 6%. In previous years, what I've done is I've taken a look at the percentage rates based on pools. And earlier I mentioned this idea of context. That could very much apply to students who are applying from California, to students who are applying from out of state, to students who are applying internationally. And the percentage rates for each pool are about, well, actually, for California, it's around, in the past, it's been around 20%, and for out of state, it's been around 22%, and international, I'm not quite sure. I don't remember off the top of my head the percentage rate for that pool. But the majority of the students that we're admitting are coming from California. That's always been our thing, according to the Master Plan for Higher Education.
When you say majority means what, 6%, 7%, 8%?
I feel a little uncomfortable quantifying that in a number because I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but it would probably be around 75%. Yeah.
I don't know if this is a question for you or one of the other speakers, but how do you advise parents on helping their child find the good fit schools?
And this is these are recommendations that both speakers had already mentioned, is that you should definitely try to visit a campus. A lot of times it's that split-second reaction once a student is on campus during an active time when there's a lot of student life going around, that will sway a student and actually get them to picture themselves at that environment. So visiting a campus is really important. Other things like, is the major that they're looking for and strong there? Is there a strong program that's offered for your son or daughter? Are there activities, co-curricular activities at the university that they feel that they would get involved in? Geographical location, if your son or daughter thrives in a city or an urban environment versus wanting to be in a suburban environment, those are different things that would affect whether or not a school is a good fit.
Multiple colleges over multiple years, I think, is a great strategy if you have the time. We just took students to 7 colleges in 4 days, and it was very eye-opening for all of them. And we had freshmen, sophomores, and juniors on the trip. So I think what we will do is give a big round of applause to our speakers, and we'll be here to talk.